The wind tore across the Nebraska prairie, a relentless force that whipped dust into Clara Hensley's face as she stood outside the one-room schoolhouse in Willow Creek. It was late September, and the air carried the sharp bite of autumn, though the sun still burned high in a cloudless sky. Clara, at 26, was the sole schoolmarm in this speck of a town, a place so small it barely clung to the map. Her days were filled with the chatter of children, the scratch of chalk on slates, and the endless task of teaching arithmetic and reading to pupils who often arrived with muddy boots and minds more focused on the harvest than their lessons. But it was her nights that weighed heaviest, long, silent hours in her tiny cabin, where the crackle of the fire and the howl of the wind were her only companions. For years, she had told herself she was content, that her work was enough, that the children's eager faces filled the hollow spaces in her heart. But the truth had a way of creeping in during those quiet evenings, when the loneliness settled like dust she couldn't sweep away. Clara had grown up in Philadelphia, the daughter of a bookbinder and a seamstress, surrounded by the hum of city life. But when her parents succumbed to a fever 5 years ago, she'd been left with little but a handful of savings and a restless spirit. The teaching post in Willow Creek had seemed like a chance to start anew, to carve out a purpose in a place where she was needed. The prairie, though, was a hard place to call home. The nearest neighbor was a mile away, the town's general store was a half-day's ride, and the endless horizon seemed to mock her smallness. She'd watched other women in Willow Creek marry, build families, find anchors and husbands and children. Clara, though, had no suitors. The men here were rough-hewn farmers or transient cowboys, none of whom showed interest in a slight, bookish woman with ink-stained fingers and a penchant for quoting Longfellow. Last winter, as the snow piled high and the isolation grew unbearable, Clara had done something impulsive. She'd answered an advertisement in the Matrimonial News, a publication she'd found tucked in a crate of supplies at the general store. The ad was simple, written in a careful hand: Elias Boone, 32, farmer from Ohio, seeks a wife of good character. Steady, hardworking, desires a partner for life on the land. Clara had hesitated for weeks, her pen hovering over the paper, her heart warring between fear and hope. What did she know of marriage, of men, of sharing a life? But the loneliness had won out, and she'd written to Elias, her words cautious but honest. She'd described her work, her love of books, her quiet dreams of a home filled with warmth. His replies came slowly, each one brief but thoughtful, written in a plain style that spoke of a man who measured his words as carefully as he measured his seed for planting. Over months, their letters built a fragile bridge between them, and Clara began to him.